The stars above the planet Elysium shone like cold diamonds in a black sky. 10-year-old Max Carter sat on a small rock outside the temporary human outpost, his legs swinging and his eyes full of wonder. It was his first time on an alien world, and even though his parents were busy helping the locals with medicine and water systems, Max felt like he was on a great adventure. Elysium was home to a gentle alien species called the Talari. They looked a little like tall, glowing deer with long arms and faces that reminded Max of paintings of angels. Their voices were soft and their eyes seemed to hold ancient knowledge. Most of them were shy around humans, but not Leora. Leora was different. She was around Max's age, maybe a little younger. Her skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight and her large blue eyes sparkled with curiosity. She had been following Max around for days, asking questions in broken English and teaching him a few Talari words in return. They had become unlikely friends. That night, Leora sat beside him, staring up at the stars. "You're home," she said, pointing to the sky. "Earth, is it beautiful?" Max nodded. "Yeah. Lots of trees, cities, oceans, you'd like it." "I want to see it one day," Leora whispered. "But the elders say no. Too far. Too dangerous." Max grinned. He liked pretending to be important. "Well, when we grow up, I'll take you there." Leora tilted her head. "You promise?" Max laughed. "Sure, I'll marry you and take you to Earth. We'll ride rocket ships and eat ice cream." To him, it was just a silly joke, like the kind kids make all the time. He didn't even think she would understand what marry meant. But Leora's eyes went wide. She placed her small hand over her heart, a gesture Max had seen the Talari do when making serious oaths. "I accept," she said with a smile. "One day I will find you." Max blinked. Okay." That was the end of it. For him. The next day, his parents' team left Elysium, and he never saw Leora again. Life went on. 18 years later, Max Carter was no longer a boy. He was a tired, overworked engineer living on Mars, working in the outer colonies. He dealt with power systems, habitat leaks, and broken air filters. His days were long, and his meals were always reheated. Life was fine, but boring. He hadn't thought about Elysium in years. Not really, until the knock on his door. It was early evening when it happened. Max had just taken off his boots and was heating soup when the soft chime rang. He sighed, walked over, and opened the door. Standing there was a tall figure dressed in elegant silver robes. Her skin shimmered faintly, just like he remembered. Her eyes, those same bright blue eyes, met his. "Hello, Max Carter," she said, her voice gentle but clear. "I have come to fulfill your promise." Max stared, his spoon clattering to the floor. "Leora?" She smiled. "You remember?" Of course he did. How could he not? Her face hadn't changed much. Talari aged differently, but she was older. Now, stronger, graceful, and she stood at his door like someone sure of herself. Wait, what do you mean?" "Fulfill my promise," Max said, trying to keep his voice calm. "You said we would marry. That you would take me to Earth," she replied simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. "I have trained. I have waited. I am ready." Max's brain scrambled for the right words. I was 10. I didn't mean it seriously. It was just a joke." Leora's smile faded slightly, but her expression remained calm. "Among my people, a promise made with a full heart is sacred. Even a child's words hold weight. You spoke with joy, with hope. That is why I believed you." Max rubbed his forehead. This had to be a mistake, or a prank. But deep down, something old stirred inside him. Memories of starlight, laughter, and a lonely alien girl who had found a friend in him. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't need to say anything now," Leora said gently. "I am not here to force you, but I have come as you asked. The choice is yours." And with that, she stepped inside, her presence quiet but strong. As the door closed behind her, Max realized his peaceful, boring life had just ended. And maybe, just maybe, something extraordinary was beginning. Max sat across from Leora in his small living room. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heating unit on the wall. Outside the dome, the red Martian dust blew in gentle waves across the empty plain. Max stared at his guest, still trying to believe she was real. Leora looked around the room with calm curiosity. "This is your home now?" she asked. Max nodded slowly. "Yeah, not much, but it works." She tilted her head. "It is simple, but strong. Like you." Max blinked. "You really came all this way because of that promise? That joke I made? When we were kids?" Leora placed her hand over her heart again. "To Talari, a spoken bond is a living thread. You gave me hope, Max. In a time when my people feared change, you showed me kindness. You made a promise, I believed in it." Max ran a hand through his hair. "I was 10 years old, Leora. I didn't even know what I was saying. But I did," she said quietly. "And I waited. I trained with the elders. I studied your language. I learned your customs. And when the time came, I became a messenger so I could travel to your world." Max was speechless. He had spent the last few years fixing broken water lines and power grids on Mars. Meanwhile, Leora had shaped her entire life around a promise he barely remembered. "This is a lot," he finally said. "I don't know what to do." "You don't need to decide now," Leora said gently. "I ask only for time, to stay near, to understand who you are today." Max nodded, unsure of what else to say. Just then, the door chimed again. He opened it to find Mira, his neighbor and coworker, holding a tablet. "Hey, Max," she said, then noticed Leora behind him. Her eyes widened. "Whoa, is that a Talari?" Max stepped aside. Yeah. This is Leora. She's, visiting." Leora stood and bowed politely. "Peace to your dwelling," she said in clear, soft English. Mira blinked. "Wow, that's the best accent I've ever heard from a Talari. She's beautiful. Is this a new Mars relations program?" Max scratched the back of his neck. "It's complicated." Leora smiled at Mira. "We are old friends?" Mira raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Well, Max, there's a message for you, from Central Command." She handed him the tablet and left with one more curious glance at Leora. Max closed the door and opened the message. His stomach dropped. "They know you're here," he said to Leora. "The Mars Authority wants to speak with you. And me. Tomorrow." Leora nodded. "I expected this. Talari presence without notice causes alarm." Max sighed. "You came here without telling them?" "I followed protocol of my people," Leora said. "But perhaps not yours. I believed you would protect me." Max looked at her. "I don't even know what I believe anymore." The next morning, Max and Leora arrived at the Martian Administrative Dome. The building was cold, gray, and full of tension. A human official named Director Kane greeted them with a stiff smile. "Mr. Carter, Leora of Elysiar," Kane said, nodding once. "We've received no record of a diplomatic visit. Your presence on Mars was not approved through proper channels." Leora stood tall. "I come not as a diplomat, but as a private citizen. I seek only to fulfill a personal bond." Kane raised an eyebrow. "A bond?" Max sighed. "It's about a promise I made when I was a kid, on a mission to Elysiar." "I didn't think she did," Kane said sharply. "And now we have a Talari visitor staying in a colony without clearance. That causes questions, political ones." Leora bowed. "I will return if asked. I mean no harm." Kane hesitated, then looked at Max. "You understand this could cause tension between our species?" Max nodded. "Yes, but I also know she didn't come here to make trouble. She just wants a chance to understand the promise. And maybe, so do I." There was silence. Then Kane sighed. "Fine, but she stays under limited movement. You'll be responsible for her." I accept, Max said, surprising himself. As they left the building, Leora looked at him with calm eyes. You did not have to speak for me. I know, Max said. But maybe it's time I learn what this promise really means. Leora smiled. Then the journey begins. As they walked back through the red dust of Mars, Max didn't feel quite so lost anymore. Something was changing. A long-forgotten thread had been pulled, and the path ahead, strange and uncertain, was one he was no longer afraid to follow. Max didn't sleep much that night. He sat on his couch, staring at the ceiling, while Leora rested in the guest room. Thoughts kept spinning in his mind like broken satellite pieces. He had made a promise long ago without meaning it, but to Leora that promise had changed everything. And now, she was here, on Mars, in his house, waiting to see who he had become. When the sun rose over the red Martian horizon, Max made breakfast, something simple: eggs, toast, and fruit. Leora walked into the kitchen quietly, her silver robes shining in the soft light. I hope you're hungry, Max said. Leora looked at the food and smiled. It smells warm. Max laughed lightly. Well, that's one way to describe it. They sat together and ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Leora asked, May I walk outside today? Max paused. Technically, you're under observation, but I think it's okay if we stay near the housing dome. I would like to see your world. Even just a little. Max nodded. All right, let's go. Outside, the Martian colony stretched, out like a puzzle of glass, metal, and red dust. Transparent domes covered different buildings. Some were homes, others research centers, and a few greenhouses filled with earth plants trying to grow in alien soil. As they walked, people turned to look. Some whispered, others stared. Max felt awkward, but Leora kept her head high, her steps graceful. They stopped near a small park dome where synthetic grass grew. Children played, and a few stopped when they saw Leora. One little girl pointed and said, Is she a space princess? Max smiled. Leora knelt and held out her hand. The girl stepped closer, wide-eyed. Leora gently touched her hand. I am a visitor, she said softly. Not a princess. But thank you. The girl giggled and ran back to her friends. Max watched the moment, feeling something stir inside him. Leora wasn't just here for a promise. She wanted to connect, to understand his world, and maybe be part of it. But not everyone felt the same. A man in a dark uniform approached them. He wore the badge of a Martian security officer. Mr. Carter, he said, may I speak with you privately? Max nodded. Of course. He turned to Leora. Give me a moment. She bowed gently and stepped away. The officer lowered his voice. I won't lie to you. Her presence is causing tension. Some people are afraid. Afraid of what? Max asked. Afraid that this is more than a visit, that it could mean political pressure, that maybe the Talari are testing us. Max shook his head. She's not here for politics. That's not how everyone sees it, the officer replied. There's talk. High Command wants to know where you stand. I didn't ask for this, Max said quietly, but I won't throw her away just because others are uncomfortable. The officer looked at him carefully, then nodded. Watch yourself, Mr. Carter, and watch her too. Some people may not be kind. He walked off, and Max returned to Leora, who was sitting under an artificial tree. Is something wrong? She asked. Just people being careful, Max said. You're unexpected. I know, Leora said softly. My people feared your world too. Some still do. Then why come? Max asked. Leora looked up. Because I believed in your words. They were small, yes, but full of wonder. Your promise was not about duty, it was about hope. Max sat beside her. And now? Now I want to know the real you, if you're still the boy who looked at the stars and dreamed. Max looked at the sky beyond the dome. I don't know. Maybe I stopped dreaming. Then let's find those dreams again, Leora said. Together. Later that day, Max received Another message from Central Command. It was not a request, it was an invitation to something called a trial of honor. "What's this?" he asked, staring at the screen. Leora stood beside him. "It is our way," she said. "A tradition. When a promise is made but the heart is unsure, a trial is given. It is not a test of strength, but of spirit." Max raised an eyebrow. "And what happens if I fail?" "You are free," Leora said. "But the bond is broken forever." Max looked at her, really looked. She wasn't trying to trap him. She had risked everything to be here. And now she was offering him a way out with dignity, or a way in, with meaning. "When does it start?" Max asked. "Tomorrow." Max nodded slowly. "Then I'll be ready." And for the first time in years, he wasn't just saying it. He meant it. The next morning came with a pale orange sky. Mars looked calm, but Max Carter's mind was anything but calm. Today was the beginning of the trial of honor, a Talari tradition he never thought he'd be part of. Yet here he was, standing in front of the Mars Council Hall with Leora beside him. Leora wore a new robe. It was white with gold lines, a symbol of truth in her culture. She looked proud, but peaceful. Max, in his plain jacket and boots, felt like he was standing on the edge of something bigger than himself. "What exactly is this trial?" Max asked again as they entered the hall. Leora smiled gently. "It is a path, not a fight. There are 3 parts. 1 to test your mind, 1 to test your heart, and 1 to test your will." "Sounds like a full day," Max muttered. Inside the hall, several Talari and human diplomats were waiting. A round platform had been built in the center. On it stood 3 tall chairs and a glowing orb that hovered in the air. The orb pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. A Talari elder stepped forward. He was taller than Leora, with glowing silver lines across his arms, marks of wisdom and age. "Max Carter," the elder said in a calm voice, "do you accept the trial of intent to honor the bond your words once began?" Max took a deep breath. "I do." "Then step forward." The first part begins. Part 1. The mind Max was led into a quiet room filled with symbols and images, some human, some alien. A calm female Talari guide stood beside a large screen. "Must look at these images," she said, "and choose the one that brings peace to your mind." Each time a group of images appeared, Max made a choice. Sometimes he picked a tree, sometimes a smiling face, sometimes a quiet mountain. At the end, the guide nodded. "You do not choose power or control. You choose calm, connection, and meaning. This shows your mind values peace." Max sighed in relief. "That's good, right?" "It is the first step," she said with a gentle smile. Part 2. The Heart. The second test took place outside, under the sky dome. Max and Leora stood facing each other. A small crowd watched in silence. "This is the trial of memory," Leora explained. "You must speak a moment from your heart, a true moment. It must be honest, even if it is small." Max looked at her. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Then he remembered something. "When I was about 12, Max began, "I got lost in a forest near our colony. I was scared. It got dark. But then I looked up at the sky and remembered the stars above Elysiar. And I thought of you." Leora blinked. "I don't know why," Max continued. "It was just a feeling, that even though you were far away, someone out there had once believed in me. That gave me the strength to find my way back." He paused. "I never told anyone that." Leora stepped forward and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "That is the heart I remember." Part 3. The will for the last trial, Max was asked to enter a simulation room. Inside, he faced a 3D projection, a dangerous situation created from real data. A Mars rover was on fire, people were trapped, a supply unit was about to explode. The voice of the Talari elder came through a speaker. You must choose. Save the rover's data or save the people. There is no way to do both. Max stared at the burning screen. His hands moved quickly. He rerouted energy lines, used fire seals, and created a delay in the fuel lines. You must choose now, the voice repeated. I'm not leaving anyone behind, Max said firmly. There's always another way. He used his engineering skills to blow a small vent near the fire, cooling it enough to give the trapped people time to escape. The rover was damaged, but everyone was safe. The simulation ended. The elder's voice returned. You showed will, not by following the rules, but by changing them to protect others. Max stepped out, sweating, but proud. Back in the council hall, Max stood once more before the crowd. Leora stepped beside him. The elder raised his hand. Max Carter has completed the trial of intent. His mind is clear, his heart true, and his will strong. The promise may be renewed, if both agree. All eyes turned to Max. He looked at Leora. She was quiet, her eyes filled with hope, but not pressure. She was giving him the choice again. Max spoke slowly. 18 years ago, I made a promise without understanding, but today, I understand better, and I'm not ready to let this end. I want to see where this path leads. Leora smiled. Then we walk it together. The crowd clapped softly. No big speeches, no fireworks. Just quiet respect. As Max and Leora walked out into the Martian sunlight side by side, he felt lighter than he had in years. The trial was over, but the real journey had just begun. The days after the trial of intent were peaceful, for a while. Max and Leora spent their time learning more about each other. Max showed her how machines on Mars worked. Leora taught him how the Talari used sound and light to communicate with their home planet. They laughed, shared stories, and walked under the artificial domes like old friends discovering a new world together. But not everyone was happy. Unknown to Max, trouble was already growing. A message was sent from Mars to Earth Command. Some officers believed Leora's presence could lead to political problems with the Talari government. Others feared she was not just a visitor, but a secret agent testing human trust. And far away, on the edges of Elysior's government, there were those who hated the idea of bonding with humans at all. One such group called themselves the Silent Root. They believed the Talari should remain pure and separate. To them, Leora's actions were a disgrace. And now, they had come to Mars. It began with small things. A power station in the colony lost connection for 2 minutes. A food supply truck was delayed due to unknown errors. Then a drone crashed near the outer dome, not damaged by the wind but by a directed energy source. Max noticed the pattern. These aren't accidents, he told the colony chief. Someone's testing us, trying to find weak spots. Are you saying it's sabotage? The chief asked. I'm saying someone doesn't want Leora here, Max replied. That evening, as Max returned home, he found Leora standing silently by the window. She was watching the horizon beyond the dome wall. You feel it too? Max asked. Leora nodded. Yes. There is a silence in the stars tonight. Something dark walks behind us. Max checked the security system and locked the doors. Then, we'll be ready. The next day, Max was scheduled to give a short talk to new colony engineers. Leora stayed home reading a human book called Of Earth and Ocean, a gift from Max. But she never finished the chapter. A soft sound, like a whispering wind, moved through the walls. Leo. Ra stood up, her eyes narrowing. She stepped to the door, and it opened before she touched it. 3 Talari figures entered. They wore dark gray robes and carried staff-like weapons. Their faces were hidden behind metal masks. One stepped forward. Leora of House Leary, he said coldly, you have broken the ways of our ancestors. You will come with us. I walk with peace, Leora said, lifting her chin. But I will not follow shadows. The masked figure lifted his staff. A blue light formed at the top. We will take you by force if needed. Leora took a deep breath. Then I will resist. Max was in the middle of a presentation when his comm device buzzed with an emergency alert. It was from his own home. He didn't wait. He grabbed his toolkit, jumped on a service bike, and sped back across the red plains. He arrived to find the front door broken and the window cracked. The inside was quiet. "Leora?" he called. A sudden flash came from the hallway, and a figure in a mask stepped into view. Max reacted fast. He pulled a flash beacon from his kit and threw it. The bright light burst, stunning the figure for a moment. Max ran inside and found Leora pinned against a wall, her hand gripping one of the attacker's staffs. He tackled the attacker from behind. The fight was short but rough. Max used tools, wires, and even a chair to defend his home. Leora fought with skill and grace. The two of them, side by side, drove the attackers back. One of them pressed a button on his belt, and all three vanished in a beam of white-blue light. Gone. Leora dropped her staff and breathed hard. "Are you okay?" Max asked, checking her arms for injuries. "I am well," she said. "But now, the danger is clear." Max looked around the damaged room. "They came for you." "They came to end the bond," she said. "To stop our two peoples from walking the same path." Max clenched his fists. "Then we'll show them they failed." Later that night, Max and Leora gave their report to the colony leaders. Security was tightened. The news of the attack was kept quiet, for now. As they walked back under the stars, Max looked at her. "You didn't have to fight," he said softly. "I would fight for peace," she replied. "But I also fought for you." Max nodded slowly. "And I'll fight for you too. This promise means more now than it ever did." Their hands brushed for a moment, but even that small touch held strength. The danger had arrived, but Max no longer felt like an ordinary engineer. He felt like something more, a protector, a partner, a man standing for something real. The morning after the attack was heavy with tension. Max woke early, his mind racing. Leora was still quiet, resting in the guest room. He knew the danger wasn't over. The silent route was not finished. Then, the message came from Central Command. Leora had been declared a security risk and was ordered to be detained until further notice. The order came with strict instructions, no negotiations. Max's heart sank. He stared at the message for a long time. The woman who had crossed galaxies to find him, to honor a promise he barely remembered, was now being treated like a prisoner. That was not right. Not to him. Max made his decision. He packed a small bag with tools, data drives, and his personal weapons, a stun baton and a compact plasma cutter. He called his closest friends, Mira, a communications expert, and Raj, a pilot with a talent for getting into and out of tight spots. "We're going to get her out," Max said, voice low but steady. Mira nodded. "I'll get the security feeds and comms. We'll need every advantage." Raj cracked a smile. "Sounds like a rescue mission. I'm in." That night, under the faint glow of Mars's twin moons, the small team moved quietly through the colony's shadowed corridors. Security was tighter than usual. Guards patrolled with cautious eyes. Max's heart pounded. Every step brought him closer to the room where Leora was held. They reached the detention block. Mira hacked the security panel, fingers flying over her portable console. The door clicked. Inside, Leora sat calmly on a metal bench. She looked up as Max entered, her eyes lighting with relief. "Max," she whispered. He smiled, but didn't waste time. "We're getting you out." A sudden alarm blared through the block. "They know we're here," Mira said urgently. Raj moved to the door. "Time to go." The team hurried through twisting hallways, dodging guards and surveillance drones. Max felt adrenaline surge, but he kept his mind clear. At the airlock, Raj opened the external door. Outside, the Martian night was cold and silent. "Go!" Raj shouted as the alarm grew louder. They sprinted into the dark desert plain, dust rising around them. Behind, the colony's security forces rushed out, weapons ready. Max turned once, and for the first time felt something stronger than fear. Hope. Leora ran beside him, her hand slipping into his. "We won't let them break us," she said. He nodded. "Not now. Not ever." They reached the edge of the colony and climbed into Raj's small shuttle. The engines hummed as they took off, leaving the red world behind. For a moment, the stars seemed brighter, closer. Inside the shuttle, Leora looked at Max. "You risked everything." "I risk everything for you," Max said simply. She smiled, a soft glow in her eyes. "That is a promise I can trust." Back on the ground, the leaders of the colony were furious. The Silent Root had planned this well. They had aimed to divide humans and Talari forever. But Max and Leora were now united, not by old words or childish jokes, but by choice. Together, they would face whatever came next. The small shuttle glided through the blackness of space, stars twinkling like distant fires. Inside, Max sat beside Leora, both catching their breath. The tension of the rescue still hummed in their veins, but now a new feeling settled. A calm hope. Outside, Mars grew smaller in the window, a red jewel against the dark. "What now?" Max asked quietly. Leora looked at him, her bright blue eyes steady. "Now we decide." Max nodded. "The promise we made, it started as a joke, but it's become real. I don't want to just honor it because I feel I must. I want to honor it because I want to." Leora smiled softly. "I feel the same. Our bond is not just tradition, it is choice." For a long moment they looked out at the stars. The future was wide and unknown, but no longer frightening. Back on Mars, the news of Leora's escape spread quickly. The colony leaders were angry, both at the Silent Root extremists and at their own security failures. But more than fear, the event sparked conversations between humans and Talari. Leaders from both species began to see that old fears could be overcome. Diplomatic channels opened, again. Weeks later, Max and Leora stood together before a crowd gathered in the colony's main hall. The room was filled with humans and Talari, diplomats and engineers, families and friends. Max cleared his throat. "When I was a boy, I made a promise without thinking. It was a joke, but Leora never forgot it. She believed. And because of that, I have learned what it means to keep a promise." He glanced at Leora, who smiled back with warmth. "We are different species, different worlds. But that does not mean we cannot share a future." Leora stepped forward. "Our bond is not just between two people. It is a symbol of hope, of trust, of peace." The crowd applauded softly, some with tears in their eyes. Max knelt down on one knee. "I, Max Carter, choose to keep this promise. Not because I must, but because I want to. Leora, will you marry me?" Leora's eyes shone. She took his hand. "Yes, together we will build a future." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Under the stars, with friends from both species, Max and Leora exchanged vows. It was more than a wedding. It was a promise to the universe, a proof that humanity, with its flaws and hopes, could build bridges even between the stars. Months passed. Max and Leora worked side by side, helping create new programs for human-Talari cooperation. Schools taught children about both cultures. Scientists shared knowledge. Artists painted the beauty of two worlds meeting. They faced challenges. Of course, there were still those who doubted or feared. But Max and Leora faced those challenges with patience and courage, and in every step their bond grew stronger. One evening, as they walked through a garden filled with earth flowers and Elysier light plants, Max took Leora's hand. "Do you remember that night, 18 years ago?" he asked. She nodded. "You promised me a joke." He laughed softly. "Yes, but sometimes a joke can start something real." Leora smiled. "And sometimes a promise can change the future." They looked up at the stars, feeling the weight of the past and the hope of what was to come. Together they were ready for anything because this was their future. The future humanity could build, one promise at a time.